Democracy comes from two Greek words. Demos, meaning whole citizen living within a particular city-state, and kratos, meaning power or rule. When they are together, such as in democracy, they become the power of the people. Democracy is a system of government by the whole population or all the eligible members of a state, typically through elected representatives.
Industrialization is the large-scale introduction of manufacturing, advanced technical enterprises, and other productive economic activity into an area, society, country, etc.
Capitalism is an economic and political system in which a country's trade and industry are controlled by private owners for profit rather than by the state. One of its first promoters was Adam Smith, who talked about it in his book, The Wealth of Nations.
During the Tokugawa regime, the intellectual life and the culture of Japan expanded. The higher class became more secular and schools and academics expanded, even below high class. A group of Japanese called the Dutch Studies kept the knowledge of the Dutch to help their trade in Nagasaki. When the ban on Western books was lifted in 1720, the Japanese scholars realized the knowledge of the Western was higher than that of the Chinese in anatomy, which made them reject Chinese medicine and culture.
While the Japanese commerce expanded during the 19th century, it all came to a stop during the 1850s. This was because of the technological limitations that strained agricultural expansion as well as limiting the population increase. During this era, there were many rural riots, not because of political changes, but because of unfair landlords and merchants. These riots were put down with ease.
The Japanese were very concerned about external threats since their army and navy were not very strong. These fears were made a reality when Commodore Matthew Perry arrived and used threats to allow trade. There were Japanese who were tired of the isolation which made Dutch schools expand. On the other hand, there were daimyo who were extremely conservative. They were opposed to the new concessions and appealed to the emperor for support.
In the 1860s, political crisis began. There were samurai attacks to foreigners as well as naval bombardments of feudal ports. All the fights later became a shock and a reality check to them because of their superiority. This era of conflicts ended thanks to the appointment of a new emperor named Musuhito, whose region was called Meiji, or Enlightened.
The Emperor of Meiji promulgated the Charter Oath on the 7th of April of 1868. It outlined the main aims and the course of action to be followed during Emperor Meiji's reign, settling the legal stages for Japan's modernization. This also set up a process of urbanization, as people of all classes were free to move jobs, so people went to the city for better work. By this oath, we set up as our aim the establishment of the national wealth on a broad basis and the framing of a constitution and laws. Number 1. The deliberative assembly shall be widely established and all matters decided by open discussion. Number 2. All classes, high and low, shall be united in vigorously carrying out the administrations of affairs of state. Number 3. The common people, no less than the civil and the military officials, shall be allowed to be pursued their own calling so that they may not be discontent. Number 4. Evil customs of the past shall be broken off and everything based upon the just laws of nature. Number 5. Knowledge shall be sought throughout the world so as to strengthen the foundation of imperial rule.
In 1868, the rebels got the newly enthroned Emperor Meiji to abolish the Bakufu and proclaim a restoration of the imperial throne. Now, the emperor didn't have much real power, but he became a symbolic figure, a representative of a mythical past around whom modernizers could build a sense of national pride. And in place of Bakufu, Japan created one of the most modern nation-states in the world. After some trial and error, the Meiji leaders created a European-style cabinet system of government with a prime minister, and in 1889, promulgated a constitution that even contained a deliberative assembly, the Diet, although the cabinet ministers weren't responsible to it. Samurai were incorporated into this system as bureaucrats, and their stipends were gradually taken away, and soon the Japanese government developed into something of a meritocracy. Japan also created a new conscript army. Beginning in 1873, all Japanese men were required to spend 3 years in the military. The program was initially very unpopular. There were more than a dozen riots in 1873 and 1874 in which crowds attacked military registration centers, but eventually service serving in the army created a patriotic spirit and a loyalty to the Japanese emperor. The Meiji leaders also instituted compulsory education in 1872, requiring both boys and girls to attend 4 years of elementary school. Nationalism meant modernization, largely inspired by and in competition with the West. So the Meiji government established a functioning tax system, they built public infrastructure like harbors and telegraph lines, invested heavily in railroads, and created a uniform national currency. But the dark side of nationalism began to appear early on. In 1869, the Meiji rulers expanded Japan's borders to include the island of Hokkaido, and in 1879, they acquired Okinawa after forcing its king to abdicate. In 1874, Japan even invaded Taiwan with an eye toward colonizing it, although they weren't successful. And in these early actions, we already see that nationalism has a habit of thriving on conflict. And often the project of creating a nation-state goes hand in hand with preventing others from doing the same. This failure to imagine the other complexly isn't new, but it's about to get a lot more problematic, as we'll see next week when we discuss European imperialism.